Season ticket renewal information is available at your seat, and new season ticket information is available at the ticket office. We would like to remind you that any still, video, or audio recording of this performance is strictly prohibited, and that all cell phones and similar devices should be turned off and secured during the run of this performance. Thank you, and enjoy the show.
And that's my cue to begin. And I just lost my ears. Someone stole them between the end of the the first show and now. So I don't have ears like those. Welcome to Shrek. It's going to be a good night for you, I can tell you right now, because I saw it on Friday and it's a beautiful job that they have done. The people on Broadway discovered that there was a gold mine found in some fairy tales or children's stories, fantasy. So we've had a number of shows like that have hit Broadway, and almost all of them have been very successful. Ones that are based on children's shows, on cartoons, on all sorts of things like that. Even TV has gotten excited about Grimm, if you've been watching that at all. And, so I guess it's a new discovery. With this type of show, though, it does have problems. And the problems involve trying to take something where a character can fly through the air without any problems and make them fly through the air on stage, of course. And other things that happen in cartoons that have to be taken care of as far as what you're doing with the scenery, with the costumes, and with the makeup. Shrek, for example, has to work 3 hours to get his makeup on, and with Beauty and the Beast, the Beast works longer than that to try to get his makeup on. So there are problems that exist, but everybody solves them in one way or another. Probably one of the earliest ones was Annie, which was a cartoon character that was in the local newspaper for years. And they followed pretty much realistically with Annie. It was the first one that we had really on Broadway. Annie kept her red curly hair. And by the way, Annie's coming back to Broadway. I saw on the Today Show this week the new Annie, and she had dark hair. I'm sure it will not be dark when she's on stage. But at any rate, they kept the curly red hair. They kept the red dress that she wore. The one thing they did cut out was her eyes. If you remember, the eyes on both Annie and Sandy were just ovals and didn't have any pupils. So anyway, they decided, okay, this Annie can have eyes and the dog can have eyes too. And speaking of the dog, this time we had a real dog for Annie. Lately, most of the dogs have been comic characters, and they are made up by somebody inside a dog suit. Daddy Warbucks pretty much looked like the Daddy Warbucks that was in the comic strip, as did Mrs. Hannigan, who was dressed in black and was really mean. So we got them taken care of. They looked like the characters that were in the comic strips, of course, and that's what they should look like. With Beauty and the Beast, it went a step farther. Rather than just having characters that looked like the characters in the cartoons, we had the characters that were representative of inanimate objects. If you remember Beauty and the Beast, if you've seen it, or if you haven't seen it, it has a candelabra, and the guy who does the candelabra goes around with two burning candles all the way through the show, which is a feat in itself. If you try to hold your hands up for a while and see how tired you get, I'm sure that he's tired when he gets off stage at night. Also, the teapot, a lady who is the teapot, and one who is the chifforobe, a wardrobe that you can open the drawers in the front of. So we went from animate objects, from people, now to inanimate objects. So it's kind of interesting. I was at USITT 2 weeks ago in Long Beach. USITT is the U.S. Institute for Theater Technology. And so we had all sorts of showing of how to have fog, how to have mist, how to have lightning, how to have projections that work in different ways and so forth was at this conference. They are now known as let's see. I can't even pronounce it. But anyway, I'm sorry, I can't even. They are atmosphere anyway. They're the type of thing that create an atmosphere on stage. As a matter of fact, you'll have that at the beginning of this show. You've got a bunch of fog where it starts in the swamp, and you know you're in a swamp because it's foggy. Peter Pan took the idea a little farther with flying, and so we had, when we did Peter Pan, when you have Peter Pan, of course you have Peter flying and you have the two children flying, which means that you have to have somebody then pulling ropes backstage, and the ropes really amount to two ways. You can go across stage, you can go up and down stage if you have that type of a structure. And most people who do any Peter Pan or anything else that flies, there are a number of shows now where you have people flying in them, and you usually rent a company who comes in and puts up the materials. Now, most touring shows do not have that, and the main reason they don't have it is because it takes quite a bit of time to put up the flying apparatus, and they only have so much time when you're going into a new place every half week. So it is a problem with flying in that way, but of course they have it down pat. If you're going to be in a theater for any length of time, that's not a problem. You'll hire one of these companies. One of them was Eddie Foy Company. That was the very first one. They were organized back in the 1920s. And they did almost all the flying all the way through the 1980s. Now there are about 4 companies that you can call and rent the equipment and rent the people who come in and set it up for you. And quite often they will run the primarily do the flying, doing the ropes and that type of thing to make your people fly. Peter Pan also had another thing. They had the alligator, or the crocodile rather, that had to have the costumes, that type of thing. Oh, I now have some ears. Thank you so much. That looked better. Anyway. So anyway, the flying then, when we have a number of things flying anymore. One of them, I've seen both Tarzan and I saw a rehearsal for Spider-Man. Both of those use extensive flying. I imagine you may have heard the problems that Spider-Man had. Simply they had some accidents where the flying, and the flying, by the way, in Spider-Man is so much better than the one in Tarzan. It's a great deal of difference. The Tarzan flying was not very exciting. You had a bunch of monkeys, people dressed up as monkeys, flying across stage. Tarzan appeared once in a while, but it wasn't very exciting. Now, Spider-Man is a different matter. They have learned a lot about how to do that particular type of flying on Broadway. Of course, Peter Pan was the very first one. The other thing that has happened is that we now have animals that are people inside of some type of a structure being animals. One of the very first ones of that type was the Lion King, and they had some very beautiful outfits in that particular show. Some of them had masks and on top of people's heads, so that character would have a robe and then their head, and then a head on top of that. Others were probably the most exciting of the animals was the cheetah, where they had coils of metal on the side and a person inside who made the cheetah move by moving his hands, and they had extensions of the arm, so it looked like he was really running through the woods. The elephants were very simple, and so were the lions, in that they had coverings over two people that were being the animal. Sometimes you saw the complete animal and sometimes you didn't. There are three examples, I think, dealing with horses that are kind of exciting. Well, not all horses. One of them had ponies in it, but that would be Lion King. The second one would be Equus, and Equus, I don't know if any of you have ever seen Equus. They have the horses in Equus. It's about a young man who blinds horses, who went out of his mind and blinded some horses, and then they're talking about why he did it and so forth. The horses in the show themselves are men who are dressed up in outfits that are rather form-fitting, and then the head is made of metal strips, and it has very glaring eyes on it. Then they stand on what are called cothurnus. Cothurnus is an extension of a foot. In other words, you use shoes that have an extension of about 10 to 12 inches. So that meant that the guys that were cast in this show were usually 6.5 feet or 7 feet tall. So by the time you got them with the cothurnus on and the horses' heads on, then they were about 8.5 feet tall. So they towered over any of the people in the show. The third one is now on Broadway, and you may have seen the movie War Horse. Has anyone seen War Horse? It's a wonderful movie, and it's also a wonderful play. And in that play, instead of having just one person be a horse, they have three people inside the horse. One for the back legs, one for the front legs, and then the one in the middle uses his extensions to move the head around. So you have a much more realistic look at it. Equus was not realistic, and neither was Lion King. But War Horse, you'd swear it's a real horse, you know. But you can see the people. People are in there, but you can see them. We also have in this show now. It's probably the most exciting thing in the show is the dragon. There is a dragon in the show, and the dragon is done in a different way than are any of these that I've described before. It's a great deal like the Oriental theater has prop people, and the prop people all wear black, and you're not supposed to notice them. So they may come out and put dishes on a plate, or they may pretend they're a tree by doing something like this, and the people, the actors then pretend they're a tree, and the people who are watching say, oh, that's a tree, and the actor is trying to take an apple from it or whatever. But anyway, the prop people then act as a part of that, or they disappear into the scenery. And in this case, with the dragon, you're not supposed to notice them, and to tell the truth, you don't notice them. After you watch the dragon a little bit, you forget that there are four people under there that are moving the dragon flying in the air. Watch it, I bet you will. Anyway, that's the type of thing that they use in this show to animate a character, and it works very successfully. Sometimes it's kind of fun to have scenery move, not just people, but like in Wicked, for example, the bubble that the princess comes in with, your entrance in a bubble. It's a little like the old bubble that the evil, that the not good fairy. What's her name?
Glinda.
Yeah, good witch, but Glinda. Yeah, Glinda comes entrance is that way, and so that's the way they have it in Wicked. Also, is Glinda makes her entrance that way. Another thing, we've had vehicles. There's a show on Broadway right now called Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, And Priscilla, Queen of the Desert, has some characters in there that are going across the desert in Australia. And one of the scenes is they are a little bit high one night, and one of the drag queens sits on top of the bus. By the way, the bus changes, it is colorful, it changes all sorts of ways in it. It's a wonderful bus. And then the bus then turns around. I didn't think it would turn, but it turns around and comes toward the audience, goes out on a platform up into the air over the orchestra pit, and then on top of it is this high-heeled shoe with one of the characters in that singing away. So it was a pretty exciting scene. One that should have been exciting was in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, where you have the car and the two kids, and it's supposed to fly through the air, of course. And unfortunately, what happened the night I saw it on Broadway was that the crane that holds the bus up there, you could see it. And so the whole illusion was gone. So you do have to hide things from the audience, and that was a time when it was not hidden very well. The key to any good show, I think, starts with the author, and so let's start talking a little bit about the author of Shrek. His name is William Steig. He is a cartoonist, is what his life, and he did that for the New Yorker. He was born in 1907 and died in 2003, so he really didn't see the movies come to life very much, but he was the originator of this, and he did that after he'd retired from being a columnist and a cartoonist for the New Yorker for a long time. He retired at the age of 64, and then is when he wrote Shrek. It was picked up, of course, by the DreamWorks animation people in Hollywood, and they're the ones who then created the films. And this is another example of, we've also had a number of things on Broadway where, and instead of a show going from Broadway to a movie, it's going from a movie to Broadway. And there are differences in these, but nevertheless, it's a nice partnership where you can go either way. So the DreamWorks did the Shrek series, and I don't know whether you know, there have been 5 Shrek movies. Not too exciting titles. It's Shrek and Shrek 2 and Shrek 3. And then finally they got a little exciting, and the 4th one was Shrek the Halls, which was a thing for Christmas, a Christmas movie called Shrek the Halls. Mr. Steig drew strange things. He sort of was our answer to Picasso, because some of his characters looked like Picasso drew them, with eyes in their ears and, you know, all strange characters. My favorite one is where he has a character that has a very round face, and then the ears are fairly normal, lips are a little tiny thing, and then he has 2 eyes, one of them right above the other one in the middle of the forehead. It is very Picasso-ish, and Shrek, again, has this same type of strangeness that we have in that. In this show, also, they take a number of characters out of other stories and put them into this book. It's a little like Into the Woods, which is now playing at the Landers, where you have the same thing happening. Characters from all sorts of fairy tales are in that one. Characters from all sorts of fairy tales are in this one. It's the problem that the characters in this particular show, the characters are forced to leave their home to go to the swamp because the king doesn't want them around. And then, of course, Shrek doesn't want them in the swamp, so he has a problem trying to get rid of them. That's the whole storyline for this one. I noticed also that next year we're having another one, another cartoonist, Charles Addams. You may know Charles Addams more than you know William Steig, because Charles Addams, of course, was the one who had the Addams Family, which made movie history, as well as the Munsters, which was another rip-off of the Addams Family. But the Addams Family I saw about 4 months ago on Broadway, and it's a delightful show. It's not anything like Shrek, but it does have very strange characters in it. And thought it was rather interesting that Mr. Addams had 3 wives, and the first one, he said, looked a lot like Morticia. So I'm sure that the reason he had 3 wives was because the first one wasn't happy about being compared with Morticia. How many of you know Charles Addams cartoons? Anybody? I think a very good description of Charles Addams' cartoon strangeness was his Christmas cartoon one time in the New Yorker, where they had a little choir group down below the house, and on the top tower was the family. The family's really strange. Anyway, they were on top of the tower getting ready to pour boiling oil on the characters down below. So that is really macabre, and it's really Charles Addams. So, anyway, I hope you enjoy the show, and I think you will. Okay, thanks a lot.